Yes, sir, Deepak Barara.
Hi, how are you, sir?
I'm good. What about you? All well?
All well, all well.
Good. Nice to see
Absolutely.
you around. And Rajan,
Raja, good afternoon, sir. How are you,
very
sir?
good afternoon. How are you doing? All well?
Perfectly all right, sir. With the blessing of God and with the support of well-wishers like you,
Thank
doing
you very much.
now
It's been
webinars for the benefit of our members.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to a great session by Ashok.
Sure, sir.
He is a real leader in all times.
Thank you so much for your kind words.
Please, sir.
So it's 4 p.m. So we are starting now. And I am your host. This is Rahul Jain, Director Development of LMI International, a company present in over 80 countries. And millions of people have done our programs worldwide. So we offer courses both online and offline. Now I invite Mr. Rajanji and also thank you Rajanji for giving us an opportunity. So I invite him to address this gathering.
Yeah, on behalf of DMA and on behalf of LMI India, warm welcome to all the members. First of all, I sincerely hope that you all are coping well in these difficult times and taking all necessary precautions to stay safe and healthy. This is the first, we keep on doing a number of activities with the LMI India, but this is the first initiative taken by DMA and LMI to start this webinar. Our topic is lead ahead, and we are very fortunate to have Mr. Ashok Trisu is with us. He is Director LMI, Executive Director LMI India, along with Mr. Rahul Jain. And now request Mr. Rahul to take the proceedings forward.
Thank you Rajanji and DMA for all the support that you have given throughout. And we were regularly doing the offline events, but now I think this is the new norm. So now we'll be in touch with your participants, with DMA participants through this medium. So now work at home is the new normal, yet one element of work may be missing, and this element is connected with leadership. So I am pleased to introduce Mr. Ashok Thusu, Executive Director LMI India, who will take us through this webinar, very interesting webinar and journey to explore the lead ahead imperatives. So if you have any questions, put this up in the chat box, and if we have time, we'll pick up some of them. Thank you for being here, and I now invite Mr. Ashok Thusu to continue.
Thank you, Rahul. I'm very happy to be here with you. And this is Ashok helping you in this journey to explore the lead ahead imperative. Leading ahead is something which we always need to be doing. But in this time of acute disruption, lead ahead becomes an important imperative and is kind of essential for us to do. Let me ask you one question and start with this. What is the first thing you will do when Corona stops? Say it's stopping tomorrow. What is the first thing you will do? Okay, you may say, I'll jump with joy, you'll say, I'll smile, or some other witty response. But seriously, what is the top thing you need to be doing if it starts opening tomorrow? What is the top action? What is the top work you need to do? And if you struggle for this answer right now, then you haven't started the exploration of planning ahead. And when you start planning ahead, that is where your journey of leading ahead really starts. So let me assist you in getting started on this. A kind of show of what today's run through and agenda, if you may, looks like. A slight recap on the situation. We are in the situation already, but a few words on it, because many variables exist. It is unpredictable. So perspectives become important. And to navigate through these perspectives of dynamic uncertainty, you need to be exhibiting high qualities of leadership. So it is the time for effective leaders, if you may. So what and how can you approach this aspect of leadership? And then self-barriers. We all fall into patterns of existence. And these patterns of existence work well for us in steady state times. In normal times, you're on top of things. But we become wedded to those kind of patterns of existence. These patterns are disrupted. The comfort zones of being on top are disrupted. So the whole thing lies in our mindsets. That mindset can make the difference between success and failure. So what are these? What are the things we need to master on our own and be on top of? We will do a very short exercise at the end. I would urge you to get hold of a piece of pen and paper if you haven't, because you might maybe want to take notes during the session. But as we get to the end part, you might need a small piece of paper and pen handy. So let us, if you need to get, please do it now. And finally, as Rahul said, we have some questions that have come up already when people registered in. We will be looking at those. And if there are any other questions, Rahul will be looking at the chat on the side. And if we have time, we will address these. So let me go beyond this. You know, north, south, east, west, the pandemic has spread furious and fast. No one has immunity to it. This is the first time the world has encountered it. Millions will get infected and many may not make it, sadly. And life is valuable. So it's a time of deep crisis for humankind. And not only from the perspective of the people, the crisis has hit all kind of economic activity also, virtually halting everybody in their tracks. The world has faced world wars. It has faced something called the Spanish flu, a similar pandemic in 1918. And the GDP impacts were heavy on the world in the world wars and that epidemic. Compared to this, they think that the impact will be there this time, but not as much as those. Yet it will be there. The impact will vary, obviously, from country to country. In Europe, they say it will be the most. Germany with the -7 GDP projected. England with almost similar. France with almost similar. USA with maybe 5.9 or 6 minus. And China, probably they say will be slightly into the range of getting to around 1. In India, there are different people. Somebody says 1.5, somebody says 1, somebody says 2.1. The revival pattern will vary. Remember, these are numbers which well-meaning economists and statisticians churn out based on the current knowledge available to them. And as I said, this pandemic is something which has so many new things coming up, so we really do not have a handle on it. Yet, there'll be different types of things. Some industries will be massively hit, some may have a medium hit, and some may, in fact, be thriving. Some parts of the pharma or medical goods, for example, may thrive in this. Again, we have another variable which is coming from the lockdown. So there are the preemptive and proactive lockdowns like in India. There have been the reactive lockdowns like in Spain and in Italy and New York. There have been partial lockdowns, successful ones, unsuccessful ones. Amongst all this, working at home has become the new standard. Often confusing people on what to work on. What do they do at home? Sometimes there is little clarity as we scramble to do our best. Sometimes people are focused, they have clear things to go do, but there are unseen realities in this whole thing. Some, it may sadly even seem like a paid holiday, which it should never be thought as such. So there are the optimists amongst us, maybe Mr. Donald Trump. He'd want the lockdown to end very quickly, protect the economy, but not perhaps protect people enough. So this is a challenge, duvida, as they say in Hindi. And so he's also held back by the sense of danger to people. So there are the optimists. Then there are the people hopeful like us. We hope and think that this situation will go away. Wistfully but fearfully, we look at places like Wuhan, where in 4 months' time, activity has started and restrictions have gone. So we are hopeful that something will restart. But there are pessimists also. They say, oh, there'll be a second wave. They say by the time normalcy comes, many businesses may have perished, crashed. And till the vaccine comes out, nothing is going to be normal. So whatever the case may be, you are the one who has to lead ahead. There is no variability in that. There is no unpredictability in that. You are the one who has to lead ahead. When will this end? Maybe God knows. Maybe even God does not know, because we have the fury of nature running its course. So let me go beyond this. This is a snapshot of what is happening in the world. Maybe it's 1 or 2 days old. The US seems to have crested 805,771, 8 lakh case. Italy, the curve is going down. Germany, the curve is going down, but again plateauing. UK, up, down. Canada, I don't know. India, we still don't have that plateau or anything. Where it will go beyond, will it go up into a peak? Will it flatten out with the lockdown restrictions? Will it be minimized? I don't think anybody knows. So the leader cannot get involved. Remember, there will be a day it will stop, and that is the time you have to prepare for and lead ahead to. Let me come down to perspectives. There is the economic thing. We need to peek into this maze on the right side. What is happening in there? What will happen? Do I turn left? Do I turn right? Will I get into a box end? Then there are human behaviors like you and me, and importantly, your behavior and my behavior as a leader. Then there are challenges which are there. There are obstacles, there are problems. So there are challenges. So these are outside us. And then each one of us has to ride the tsunami. Leading with people's safety in this time, that is the prime imperative. As far as possible, staying on top of your business and deal with uncertainty. And amongst all this thing which is wreaking havoc, we have to stay calm as a leader. Now, let me give you a snapshot of what the world is looking like. This is dated April 13th. This is what the US weighted average of their market capitalization looks like. Now, you know, what the market looks like is a distillation of hundreds of thousands of people thinking through and coming to conclusions. So this is a distilled viewpoint of the globe, of experts, of non-experts. And one thing is very clear emerging from here. The commercial aerospace industry is going to take a hit, minus 40% down in capitalization. Air and travel industry, oil and gas, because of not only COVID, but of supply far outstripping any kind of demand, and artificial lowering of and handling of, raising of supply, or not holding down the supply. Banking, insurance. So this is the ones which the world thinks are going to be most impacted. Now, these will vary from country to country, but this shows you a perspective of what is coming. On the right-hand side, you see the pharma. They are in a negative phase, but more so because of the overall sentiment. Consumer services, retail, medical technology, high-tech, defense. So similar patterns will exist in each country, with some variation on level of impact depending on the reality of each country. So let me get back to the perspectives. Industry-wise, there was a report from HDFC Securities which said that auto-related, banks, insurance, capital markets, discretionary item industries, which means non-essential industries, some other large industrials, and due to global impacts, the oil and gas, steel, they are in high turbulence in India. And IT is at mid-risk, pharma and chemicals at lower risk, and industry staples and food are in a low-risk zone. Yet the situation is dynamic. Nobody knows what is going to happen. At the end, there is one more unpredictable factor, and that is the consumer demand. When will people feel confident enough to start spending? There is no handle on this. There is no statistical model to predict this. So this is highly dynamic, as I said. And what will happen? So some economists say it takes a V pattern, that we were running along, suddenly the dip came, and in crisis, when things get normal, we get very quickly out of the crisis. Other economists say that no, it is not a V shape, it is a U shape. It flattens for some time and then it starts reviving out. There are yet others who say that this bottoming out may last longer. So if you had this kind of thing here and this kind of thing, we don't know how long the bottom will last. So fundamentally, whether the bottom is so much or so much, we don't know, unpredictable. And whether the recovery slope is like this or is very sharp or slow, again, we do not know. So it all boils down to what we do, and it boils down to our behavior as leaders. Now, another kind of very interesting thing, when many of you would have looked at it, where are you in the COVID-19 dilemma? Are you in the fear zone? What really happens is when we are fearful of something, uncertainty tends to paralyze our mind. And of course, when your mind is paralyzed, your actions are paralyzed because we have a reptilian brain which takes over. So there is a time to conquer this fear. You may want to move out of the fear and get into the learning zone. Really, at this time, you're learning to identify your emotions. You're not probably stocking up food in panic. And you are starting to look around at the situation and start thinking of evaluating the information. Maybe if you are in this webinar, you are already entered the learning zone away from the fear zone, but yet there are many who will be in the fear zone. But what as a leader you need to do is get into the growth zone, that I live in the present and focus on the future. This is very, very sound advice. You need to be empathetic to yourself and others, because it is people foremost, and then a happy and a positive state of mind. So the behavior which you exhibit will largely define your leadership capability and whether you are going to lead ahead or not. Now, before going further, there are things like challenges which I mentioned. There are many. It will depend on your personal situation and circumstance, apart from the industry circumstance. The key is to identify as a person what are your key challenges, whether professionally or personally, and select the ones that are critical and have some kind of plan of overcoming or minimizing the challenge. You may not be able to overcome it, but minimize it. So you need to start planning, and plan well is a clear message. Be proactive, anticipate, but plan. But many would say it is so uncertain, what do we do? So there is a model which was evolved out by the US Air Force. It's called the OODA Loop. And as you see, there is a white circle going, that is the external environment happenings. And the blue circle is you. So as things change in a dynamic and fast changing environment, you have to keep your observation ready. You can't shut yourself. You have to keep aware what is happening and what is happening critically to things that concern you, to your critical challenges as a person and as a professional. And as you observe, you keep orienting towards that new change. And as you orient, you start to figure out some scenarios so that you can decide on what courses of action could be taken, which means when there is the time to act, you do not take time here to think through. You have already thought through much of it here. Maybe 80%, maybe 70%, maybe 60%, but that is 60, 70% less time needed when the point of action comes. So this is a very powerful way to describe, and they say the key to victory is to be able to make appropriate decisions faster at the rate at which the environment is changing. And as you say, you decide you need to work out scenarios. Is it going to be okay in 2 months? Is it going to take 3 months? Is it going to be a slow recovery? Is it going to be suddenly after that a need for a faster recovery? These are 3 scenarios which become visible. It's all right if the trigger date is not done. When they decide to send a spaceship out to Mars, the trigger date when that spaceship will land is not decided, but the plans are decided beforehand. That is what leading ahead really means. And so this OODA is a very powerful representation of how a leader's thinking pattern should be. Agility, of course, is needed, but planning ahead, which is as you observe, orient, and you figure out these are likely scenarios which are going to no target dates yet, you make out your plans of action. So plan ahead is synonymous to lead ahead. So let's get back to where we were. I had said riding the tsunami. Now, these are times of danger to people. Today in the TV, I was seeing that they have some guy dressed up as Yamraj going around just trying to scare people to stay indoors. Why are they doing that? Because it's a people safety issue. So whether you are going to restart your enterprise or your professional work in 6 months, 3 months, people safety today, people safety then is one of the top agendas. You need to stay on top of your business. Not easy. You have to think differently. You have to think and deal with uncertainty. And the OODA loop, which I showed you, is really very important. Then you have to stay calm and lead, because if the leader is in a flap, then his or her mind is not functioning, they cannot lead. So we will see when it stabilizes out. So remember, fear freezes you. And when you wake up, you have these echoes in your hand coming out. I can't do anything right now. We'll see later when things stabilize. Your brain is pushing you into delays of avoiding the issue. That is not what a leader does. You need courage. You need to awaken this leader and get into a path of action. And we'll be exploring what kind of paths of action you can take. Let me proceed. So don't use deferment thinking. Think ahead. Work out scenarios. And as I said, when they send a spaceship to Mars, they don't have the date fixed that exactly when is the rocket going to take off. It may take off in 2 years or in 3 years. They look for a slot which is suitable. But in the meantime, they plan ahead, and that is what leading ahead is about. So what do you do? Let us come back to that. So as I said, lead ahead is synonymous with plan ahead. If you do not start the planning ahead journey now, when you have time, you will run short of time when really the rubber hits the road. Then you need to involve others. As you go out, you will have to execute things quickly. You need to have your teams involved and not do solo thinking. You need to involve others who will be involved in the execution. Then you have to work to multiple time use, and I'll explain this to you and how to use that in a practical manner as I go along further. And finally, you have to overcome any personal gaps. Is there anything within your behavior, your character, your competency, your skill that will let you down when you need to be agile and need to be on top of something? you need to do something about that, and the right time to do something overcoming those gaps is now, because right now you have time. When it says that COVID is over, at that point of time you will not have the luxury of time. So this is important. So key thing is to look at these things. So let us go further than this. Let me give you some examples. So what you need to think about is people safety. So if you are in an organization, are all your people safe? What is it you can do to help this? You need to be transparent with customers. They may be anxious to know when are you coming back on stream. You need to maintain that transparency and that flow with customers. You need to figure out how you will stabilize supply chains. You need to start conversations. Remember, I talked about the OODA loop. Now observe. So unless you talk to your supply chain people, how will you know where they are situated and how will you orient yourself as a leader? Then you need to have a critical eye on working capital and cash flows. You need to leverage the virtual technologies, like what is happening right now. We are leveraging the virtual technologies and also virtual learning. Can you please mute, please? Thank you. Can you mute everybody, Rahul, please? So also besides the self-upskilling, planning skills and scenarios. Rahul, can you please mute all? Thank you. So हम फ्यूचर में क्यों चाह रहे हैं पता है कि फ्यूचर में क्या है कि my competition speaking. All right. So planning skills and scenario plans. So planning skills are essential. If you are poor on planning skills, upskill yourself right now on become a top person in this. When you near the end crisis, your scenarios need to be worked out. So if you keep on observing and if you keep on seeing trends, some scenarios will emerge. You need to figure out your top actions master list. How do you do that? Remember, I asked you a question, which is the first thing you need to do if COVID is over tomorrow? Well, ask yourself that question, then ask which is the second thing you need to do. Then ask yourself which is the third thing you need to do. Ask yourself which is the fourth thing you need to do. Build a list of 20, 30 things. Prioritize those as critically important, write a C in front of them and write a others O in front of the others, and then sequence them in terms of importance, and you have your top actions master list done. This will be needed because otherwise your restart plans cannot start being even thought of. And this master list is something you can do now. You have to reimagine, readjust to the new normal. You need to involve others and use teams. So if what happens if I have this problem, then you have to reimagine a solution because the steady state solution, the old kind of mindset may not work. Constantly be solution centric, and above all through this now nearing end crisis, post end crisis, have serious cost discipline, because this can be the vital difference between who will survive and who will not. Let me go further than this. What else you can do? I mentioned time horizons. So you have to plan for different time views. Essentially, these are multiple time horizons. There is a time horizon lasting 2 weeks. So as we sit today, over the next 2 weeks is one short-term time horizon. Then another time horizon is visible over 2 months' time, then over 2 quarters. And maybe when it starts off and Sometime, if you have time, you may even look at a 2-year time horizon when you start thinking of massive growth or something like that. But the first 3 are very important: 2 weeks, 2 months, and 2 quarters. Let me go into each one of these to show you what it means. So the 2 weeks time horizon is a rolling plan for every coming 2 weeks, which means that if you have made a plan today for the next 2 weeks, then at the end of next week on a Friday or Saturday, you again work out a 2-week rolling plan, which means 1 week keeps getting incremented. And there can be several things. So are you competent in Zoom? Can you host a Zoom meeting? Oh my God, if Zoom gets banned, then do you have a backup plan? Do you have Skype? Do you have Google Meet? So these are short horizon things. These could be upskilling things. This could be related to people safety. This could be related to building relationships. Now, this is a time where you talk to all your customers. You talk to prospective customers. You talk to your suppliers. You talk to alternate suppliers. Ask them with clear empathy in your heart how they are. Listen to them. Understand their situation. Build relationships. These are the short-term things which you must be doing week on week. Where are we on claims? Do you have some personal money coming? Do you have organizational money coming? What can we do on them? Start talking to the person, become friendly with the person, because there is a time you are going to ask him. If you ask him or her today, he'll say COVID, mar gaya, finished. But if you have built a relationship, it will be easier to do it when the time comes. Then you need to figure out what collaborations you will need in the future and work on these collaborations. So it's a relationship building. It is planning which you need. So one thing in your week's horizon should be planning for something. So it could be make that top master list of actions next week. You can get that into a weekly horizon. The week after, it could be, okay, start thinking of some other thing like that, and upskilling yourself. It would be very easy for me to tell you, do the LMI program, but there are other programs. There are videos out there. You can learn something new. You can learn technological competencies, maybe not behavior change, but you can learn a lot, and you should do one upskilling item a week at least. So this is a rolling plan, as I said, coming for every 2 weeks. This is a practical thing which you could do. Then I'm getting to the 2-month examples. So if your organization has no revenues for 2 months, how will you manage? What is your plan? If you need to reduce costs when you open out, what is your cost reduction plan? These are concrete things. Remember, when it will open is a different story, but your plan time is now. People plan. Will you start at 30% capacity, 50% capacity? Who do you get in? Who do you not get in? What will they do? How will they manage social distancing as well as some production? People plan. A restart plan of operations. Oh my God, do I need to go in there and sanitize the whole factory or my office premises? Who will do that? Do I have a vendor to do that? Or who will be my operations manager looking after that? You need a plan. You need plenty of plans, friends. And vendor relations. So is my vendor going to be there, or was he running on the cusp of cash flows? He might crash out. I might not have that vendor. Or if I have that vendor, how do I help him revive and get my supply restarted? Do I need to look at alternatives? Plan. Customer relationships. Okay, this is hugely important. This is the time to build those relationships. They will tell you how the demand is going to come up. They will give you that position to observe what is happening in the environment. And you might need to think of diversification options. Okay, I'm in textile industry. Can I start making these personal productive equipment? If so, what do I do? If it opens out in 2 months, can I get started? Stuff like that. Market intelligence. So again, observe, orient, observe, orient. If you have no market intelligence, you cannot observe, you cannot orient, you cannot figure out scenarios, you cannot plan. but some plans you can do. So this is what you start doing in 2 months. This is work, and this element of work may have been well missing in what you do when you work from home. Again, upskill yourself. This is not only a weekly plan, but a longer term plan. So these are examples. Your list must include factors that reflect your reality and circumstance. These are just examples, as I said. Going ahead to 2 quarters, again, examples. The first thing is, whenever you plan, whether for 2 months or if it's a 2-week list, use written plans, pen and paper. Because if it is only a kind of mental plan, then it's a dream and fantasy. It is just like a daydream you're going through. Daydreams are bad, they will get you nowhere. You need a finance plan. You need to plan out, okay, if it starts off in 2 months, 3 months, what is the plan to finance yourself? Maybe it's not your function, maybe it's the finance chap's function, but call him up, say, what will you need from me in your finance plan? It might trigger him or her to start building that plan. Again, the cash flow plan, and this is for owner managers. These are 2 critical aspects they need to figure out. Otherwise, they'll be in grave danger. They might get opportunity. They might see the revival of customer demand, but not be able to meet it, and they will undergo a potential loss of opportunity. Operations restart plan. Everybody needs this. How do you restart your operations, whether it's a factory, whether it's a department, whether it's your function? What is the restart plan? What is the first thing to do, the second thing to do, the third thing? All planned out, not in the master list, but in a plan. Then, okay, we may have a slow start and suddenly there is capacity required. So what will be your full capacity plan? What is the people plan again? Keeping safe plan. Again, there are a host of other things, supplies, logistics, sales. There are 100 places. And of course, whatever your functional area is, if you are in HR, then what do? Written plans. As I said, no daydream. So remember, there is a crisis perspective. We are all going through the crisis perspective. We are reading about newspapers, every television, TV channel you open, there's the crisis perspective. And there is a plan ahead perspective, which is the leader's job. It is your job, it is your work, and it is you who have to do it. They say that people who have good planning and good plans get a good amount of success. And they say people who have small plans or little plans, they get a little success. What of those who do not plan at all? What happens to them? Certainly as professionals, we do not want to be in this third category. So there is need to get your act going. And I have just shared with you 3 concrete things: the 2-week plan, the 2-month plan, and the 2 quarters plan. Get going on that. That is what I'd recommend. So I talked of barriers within us. I told you there are mindsets. Some of our earlier ways which we did things had coped up. Suddenly you need to be a version 2 of yourself. What are the areas which are most critical? So we'll do an exercise, get your pen and paper out. We'll display a list of competencies and things. You write down all where you need to improve and just tick 5 of those that are essential for you to improve, ones that are highly important, and absence of these will impact your success. So you can reach out to us for clarification by email. After this session is over, you're always welcome. No charges for that. If you have anything on anything said so far you want to explore further, we will be very, very happy to assist you. So these are things in the list. I just point out there are some things here, these 4 where I'm moving my cursor. Now these are result type of things, but they invariably reflect back onto something which is a personal competency. So if you have rework or rejections, or your designs are not produced on time, your products have rejections, then it could be low planning spend. It may be that you don't have a proper goal for that. It may be that your planning and execution skills are weak. On-time delivery, maybe you are not prioritizing right. Maybe the teamwork is not happening. Maybe it's again a planning issue. Delayed projects, again it will reflect back that you are not managing your time, you are not self-organized, your things are not in place, and cost reduction again means there is a low planning. So this is the list of things which are critically important. Interpersonal, collaboration, cross-functional. Select 5 out of these, and I will be silent for about a minute. So hopefully you would have noted down 5 by this. Now what I want you to do is to further select 3 out of these. So, and then finally, which is your top one, maybe you should get started on that next week. Think prioritized. Think how much does this thing have an impact on you, whichever one. So you may have ineffective delegation that eats up into your time. You may have tried delegation, but it's not worked. So you keep doing that job yourself. Effectively, what has happened is that the junior has delegated his work on. So which is the one which is most critical? Think prioritized, which has the biggest impact on you, and also impact in terms of business results, and impact in terms of what you will need to have in place when things and execution of plans get near there. So what we are saying that if you have a weakness, it is the leader's job to move out of the weakness and maybe focus on the strengths you have. The only way to move this weakness out into strengths is to develop and improve yourself. As I said, I resist the thought of suggesting that you do the LMI program. There are plenty of other things you could do, but do something. That is my appeal to you. And there have been several questions sent by you, and we have some responses. We have some of these listed out. And as I said, if anything on this webinar, you need to ask for any further clarification or advice, personal or professional, you are always free to reach out to me. This is my email ID here. There are no charges. If you quote the DMA webinar, I will be glad to engage with you and assist you in your journey. I will go ahead to the questions. Rahul, which was the first person who had sent in a question, please?
Yeah, it's Mr. NC Sharma from Faridabad.
Okay. So Mr. Sharma has a very important and a good question, I would say. It is something which baffles us, that circumstances are out of human control. So first thing is, remember, you cannot control nature, but you can control your response to nature. So that is what you can control. You can control how you plan contingencies and eventualities. And you need to follow the OODA approach. So you cannot control circumstances. You can control your response to circumstances. Next question I'll put up, and you please tell us who asked this.
Actually, next 2 questions are by Mr. SP Singh. He is an independent consultant.
Okay. So the first question is there in front of you. So the answer and suggestion is there is plenty you can do. You can invest time in relationship building. You can ask for referrals out of your existing clients. They will come in handy in the future to build your business. You can spend time daily to enlarge your network. One of the easiest way is to find out 5 people you know very well, go into their contacts on LinkedIn, find out which contacts would be of interest to you, and ask for introductions. It's a very easy thing, but this is something you can do. And you can design part of your consulting to help mitigate the new situation. So you are a consultant. What do you have in your consulting offerings that is going to be needed for people who are coming out of this crisis? So there's plenty you can do. at home. And the second one, Rahul, you say is again from the same gentleman?
Yeah, yes.
So the thing is, what are the competencies needed in an HR guy to be leading in these disruptive times? I think the biggest competency is practicing empathy. You need to have great empathy in this situation because people are going to be suffering and you need to listen to them. So empathy is the first thing. The second is planning skills. The third is an anticipative mindset. So don't wait till things happen, anticipate what's happening. Then the fourth thing would probably be ensuring safety of people and therefore building a plan for people's safety. When the things open up, their current safety, getting teams empowered. Remember when the thing opens up and you say, okay, this is a team which is in charge of getting the whole factory sanitized. Then are they empowered or will they be in a bureaucratic decision making? So getting that alignment right in your decision making is something you can work on. And get people into self-development programs. And as I said, there are many programs out there. They're available for free. You can go in there, see a half-hour session, 1 hour session. But remember, those are all that they are gyan-giving sessions. You need to really build your people. And again, I hate to recommend, but I think the online version of our program is one of the massive things. But there are several things which the HR person can do. And empathy is one of the biggest things they need to work on. I'll get to the next question, Rahul.
The next question is by Mr. Rakesh Puri from Relaxo Footwears.
Okay. So this is a time for a high degree of personal leadership, which means you have to be able to connect the emerging dots. You have to be able to see the unseen. You have to be able to figure out how things are going to collapse together. And you have to have a vision, you have to have a courage, and this all arises from personal leadership. You need also to be an expert in planning. As I said, the OODA loop is very, very important. You need to observe and orient. You need to work out scenarios and your response to scenarios. So again, as I said, there will be no 100% exact plan on a scenario, but you will have done 40, 50, 60, 70% of the thinking before the scenario happened. And when that scenario gets real, at that time, that is the amount of time you will save and your agility will improve. So agility is something which will be required, and that comes out of planning ahead, crystallizing your thinking through, and pre-think through as much as possible. So that is what I can suggest to you. I'll come to the next one.
The next question is by Dr. Dinesh Gupta from PNB.
Yeah. So this is a very, very good question, I would say. One thing I would recommend to everyone is to have a distinction between relief measures of the government and stimulus measures. So right now what is happening is a lot of relief, a lot of containment type of thing, getting lesser load, saying we will not declare a NPA if something happens in the next month. These are all reliefs being given. The stimulus is still not visible. The stimulus needs to come. So the government has to provide stimulus. Will it be a moratorium or interest? Will it be a write-off on loans on some criteria on small-scale industries? Some stimulus has to come. And at the bottom of it, there is a very good point which he says it requires self-imposition also. Self-discipline at individual level is vital. So that is a good question, and thank you for bringing this out. Next one.
The next one is by Mr. Atulya Kumar from New Delhi.
Okay. So I am not an expert in the power sector, and it is a question answered best somebody who is very well versed in the dynamics of the power sector. However, I would like to say it's too early to judge. maybe the demand will be depressed till the world gets back onto track. So there will be people working at part capacity. So demand side will be weak. You will see definitely things happening. For example, today there is a news item that Coal India is going to sell coal at subsidized prices. Now, this may give a fill up to coal-fired plants, but I am not a subject matter expert, so I would take a pass beyond what I have said. Rahul, are there any other questions?
Yeah, there are a few questions. Like first one is from Mr. Rajesh.
Okay.
He is asking, personally, in absence of ability to read body language,
Yeah.
HR becomes a challenge online.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Sure, that is a good thing which you have asked. Let me share with you, there are very good books and very good videos on reading body language, but do not totally depend on body language. You have to also learn how to listen well. Most of the time, when somebody says something to us, forget looking at the body language, our mind has already formulated a response and we are not listening to the person. So apart from body language, which you do a course on, maybe on the web, you can get a video course or something, but that is one part of the story. The other is your listening skills and your observing skills. So slow yourself down, observe, do not be too much of a hurry. You will read much more than what you are reading just from mere words. Next, please.
The next one is by Mr. Deepak Bharara.
Yeah.
That is, the definition of work, workers and workplace has changed in this crisis.
Absolutely.
So how to approach with the new tools?
So the new tool is that planning is one of the most essential thing. The workplace, when it gets down to the workers, probably very little may change because that is a domain where physical activity and operations is involved. So in the operational arena, I don't foresee too much of change. Maybe robotics is an inverse thing. But wherever operations are done, physical operations in particular, maybe they'll get assistance from technology, but their work essentially will remain similar to what they were doing. When you get down to managerial things, yes, definitely a lot of things have changed. Comfort with interaction over Zoom or other platforms, virtual platforms, will increase, and this will become a new normal. And what do you define as work will change, because if there are organizations who are in the services sector and work from home normal has worked out for them, then there are going to be dynamics which will change. Maybe cost reduction possibilities for organizations to do that. Maybe lower commute time and a better life for the worker. So that's a very right thing. The whole thing has changed. Next, please.
I will take last two questions. First one is by Miss Bharti Ranka. She is asking, how can one manage the finances if the nature of business is based on giving credit?
Yeah, that is a very tough one. And wherever financial structures of organizations have been dependent on credit sales, it is already meant that the supply situation in those industries was high, and therefore the buyer leverage was high and the buyer demanded credit. There are no easy answers for that. You will have to organize for capital, whichever way it comes out, whether it comes out of a stimulus, whether it comes out of some other thing, but availability of capital will be essential for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can also think of how you can minimize, how you can find a new segment which is not, if possible, which is not dependent on credit. So look for where your product or a variant of your product can move to a new target market, new target segment where this demand from the buyer of credit is not there.
Yeah, of course. So last one is by Mr. Sushil Agarwal,
Yeah.
which is people are not waking up to reality of work from home. So what kind of punitive action is possible?
I think under the circumstances, there is very difficult to figure out. You know, we had a company in Bombay, a large company who was about to start the LMI program, and it got interrupted because of the whole COVID thing. Hopefully, we'll start the online programs with them. But there, the HR person said, "Okay, what kind of metrics do I make to find out whether people are working or not?" So first thing is define what they have to work. And you have to figure out what activity they have to do in a week. So break it up into a current scenario, break it up into a weekly activity expectation. So for example, if a person working from home has to call up people, so he has to make 50 calls, then have a weekly assessment of what is the target, what is the actual, and punitive action at this time will not work out. I do not think you need to probably motivate them. And having said that, it's a very tough thing because in the beginning I said there are sadly people in this world who think work from home is a paid holiday. And but you need to define what the word work means to the person working from home. And then you need to have some kind of weekly tracking of what was expected and what happened. And you can also, once you got this started, you can say that part of your salary will become variable and part will be fixed. You'll still end up making the same amount of money, but you have to exhibit the work done. So for example, if somebody is getting 30,000, just for an example, you may say that 15,000 is or 20,000 is a fixed amount and 10,000 is contingent on your sending this work report to our satisfaction every week to us. So that is something you can do. It will automatically penalize, but it is a very difficult situation to handle. And, no easy answers. That's just a suggestion. And beyond that, I'm not able to think what else could. But a punitive thing right now, apart from kind of firing off a person, nothing else punitive will work because there is no control over the work environment. All right, thank you.
There are more questions, but yeah, we can take offline those questions.
Okay.
And
so I think we have just 5 minutes. So if you can wrap up and Rajanji can wrap up then.
Yeah, indeed, it has been a great, insightful session, and Mr. Ashok has covered a lot of points, tough situations he has handled, and because this, he has also discussed about OODA approach, that is how to ride this tsunami. And of course, this planning for multiple time horizon is really interesting. Generally, we think that we need to plan for just one time horizon, but this will really help us. And then benefits of conquering our negative mindset by doing that barrier within exercise. So it has been really very positive and useful session.